Hello and welcome to lesson 3 of how to code a website for beginners. Today we'll be focusing on customizing images both in HTML and CSS code. Right, so I've already got my files open, which same files as previous lessons, and I have the HTML file opened in a browser so I can see what's going on when I change stuff in the code. So the first bit is we're going to take this code and we're going to add it to where we want an image to appear on our website. So I'm just going to put it in the section, and this will be the name of your blog, so Lifelong Vagabonds, and then this would be the image name. Now I've added a hyphen between image and name instead of a space because you can't have spaces in URL in website addresses, and the hyphen is a good way to separate all the words and make it easier to read both by you and the computer. But that is the layout you would use if it was online. However, we are not working online, so what I'm going to do to get that to work, because as you can see it doesn't work because I don't have an actual image. So I'm going to go into I'll just use this one. I'm going to open an image, right click with a browser, and it gives you what it should be called. So I'm going to copy that, go back into my home HTML file, and I'm going to replace that to there. I'm going to save that. Now when I refresh it, there's the image, but it's massive because we haven't modified it yet. Right, so that is all you need to make a image appear on your web page. Just going to indent this because it's good practice so I can see what everything is. So now I know that's automatically underneath my section because there's a stop in the end. Right, so that's all you technically need to embed an image. There are a few other attributes you should always have, and one of them is a width, so that it changes with different screens. So 100%, and that just defines what the width of the photo should be. So we'll refresh that, and you get it 100 width because I put it in the section div. It is restricted to the width of the section, which is defined as 60%. So there's that 100% of that. As you can see, when I shrink the browser or the window, that shrinks as well, and it grows with it because I've used a percentage. Right, now the other thing you should use with an image is your alt, and the alt is just the text that pops up either when the photo isn't loaded or you hover with your mouse. So what you should put in the alt is actually a description of what the image is. For instance, shadows of, well, not shadows, silhouettes of elephants. I took a while to say silhouettes because I always pronounce it silhouette and my partner gets onto me. Right, anyways, whatever of elephants, because that's like one of the words that confuse the crap out of me. And what would happen is, right, so if that was named wrong, that would make the image disappear, and it'll tell you what that text is. So silhouettes, yeah, I said it, of elephants. Right, so put that back to PNG. Okay, so now that we have the image sorted, I'm going to show you how you can modify it with HTML. Obviously the easiest way is 80, is to change the percentage. I've changed to 80, there's an 80, it's focused in the center. You can also put that as pixels as you do with your padding site CSS, and that'll keep it at the pixels. as you can see, it does not change when you resize the window because it is set as a pixel and not as a percentage. Change that back to percentage, and there you go. What you really want to do, however, is trying to avoid styling an image with HTML. What you want to do is do it in your site CSS. So we're going to change this back to 100% because, as I said, showed you earlier, this will change depending on what it's in section. For instance, it's at 60%. So even though the image width is at 100, it's not 100% of the screen. It is just 100% of what it's in. So to do this, we are going to add a div. This time it's going to be a class, and we're just going to call it an image 50. Now the reason I chose image 50 is because I'm going to put the image at 50%, which you will see in a second. So just indent a bit to make it easier. So I've used class this time because we're not going to use a hashtag. So the hashtags are for ids, and for classes you would use div, period, or full stop, as it's called in different places, and the name of whatever you called it in your HTML file. For instance, if I called this goatee, then in my site CSS, that would have to be called goatee. Right, but I'm just going to change it to image 50 so it's easier to find stuff in when you're trying to figure out what everything is and you're coding different things and I've got about a dozen of these. It makes it a lot easier to say, oh, 50%, 20%, 33%, etc. I would show you an example, but I didn't do that, and now I'm remembering weird numbers for different sizes. So yeah, learn from my mistakes. So I've got image 50 and I've got image 50. I'm then going to add attributes to what image 50 should be, and as I said, the width is going to be 50%. Don't forget the closing tag. So I'm going to refresh it, and it's made that 50% because that is what I've defined it as there. Now you can check this by, if you just copy that, paste it, we're going to change this to 25 now for image at 25%. To do that, we're going to copy, paste, image 25. I'm going to change that to 25% as well. I've put this below the aside and the section parts because I find it just easier to organize. It doesn't matter where it goes in the site CSS, that's all up to you. So save that, refresh, and there you go. You've got one at 25% and you've got one at 50%. I would keep that the same, so when you trying to resize an image, to use these because it makes it better for when you get to putting your website on a mobile, which we're not going to cover, especially not in this lesson because that is just a lot of stuff to go over. But for now, I would get in the habit of doing it this way so that when you look at it on a mobile, it is really easy to read and simple. So I do this at 100%. There is an online like someone who it judges your code and says whether or not it's good enough. Now for that will claim it needs to be a pixel, like a px. However, according to more experienced coders that I've read about online, that program that says whether or not something should be coded a certain way is pretty much just a bunch of baloney, and as long as it reads and as long as you're not doing something too crazy, having a percentage is absolutely fine. So yeah, so that's that is. I've saved everything. Now, the next step that we're going to cover is, so I've done that. We've done that. Done that. Oh, actually, we've done the entire lesson, so that was quick and easy, and that's what you end up getting. So I'm just going to throw something in real quick because I feel like that was actually relatively short, and this isn't really a like a massive learning thing to make it all confusing. When you add text that is going to be shown on your screen, you should actually put it inside of a set of this, which is just saying that's a paragraph. So save that. See, it doesn't do anything, but it does add a bit of an automatic margin around it. So with everything, I'm going to put that on each. You don't put it in your title because you just don't. So save it, push it, and it puts a margin around it, which makes it look really weird. But that is the correct way of doing things. I feel like I should go on, but that's the entire lesson, so I shall cut it there. And if you have any questions, just let me know.